She stabbed her boyfriend in the eye with needles because he was looking at other women. So this happened in Florida, where 44-year-old Sandra Jimenez lost it after her and her boyfriend of 8 years were arguing about him looking at other women. But on this specific Saturday night, when the couple arrived home, Sandra attacked him when he went to lay down. She allegedly jumped on top of him with 2 syringes in her hand and jabbed him in the eye.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? If you guys have been new here to the channel, you guys don't know what we do. We break down the most scariest or creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG Reels, Facebook. Anything weird, usual, and unexplained, you can find right here on this channel. Just want to thank all my supporters, man, who's coming back to the channel each and every single day, watching the videos entirely, man, commenting down below, and most importantly, hitting that thumbs up button on each and every single video. You guys help growing the community. I appreciate the support. Found this video for you guys today. Let's do what we do best, seekers. Say it with me, y'all. Let's seek the truth.
Toronto's scariest serial killer. 67-year-old Bruce McArthur murdered 8 men in downtown Toronto from 2010 to 2018. He was previously married with a woman and had 2 children with her, but little did they know about his double life. Many people who knew Bruce described him as sweet and outgoing, and they never imagined he would do something like this. In 2010, gay men in Toronto began going missing, and unfortunately, after some time, their cases stopped getting so much attention. Bruce first met these men on dating apps, and when he met them in person, he took their lives. He targeted marginalized men, which in this case were gay men of color. He strangled them and then dismembered their bodies and then put their body parts in planters. Bruce even took photos of his victims when they were alive and then deceased. This is one of his victims who got away after almost being murdered by Bruce. In 2018, police began discovering dismembered body parts of some of the 8 missing men on the property of one of Bruce's clients who hired him as a landscaper. And finally, in 2019, Bruce pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison.
Beware those double lives. You never know what a person's true motives are.
New York City, half of an 18th century ship that was once believed to be used by merchants.
Crazy fact.
This is the story of the worst shark attack in human history. On July 16, 1945, the USS Indianapolis was on a secret mission to bring parts and machinery to help construct the atomic bombs. These bombs, of course, would end the Second World War just a month later. The ship was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and en route to a couple of islands off the coast of Asia. And on board the ship was over 1,100 US Navy soldiers. However, on the night of the 16th, a Japanese submarine launched a torpedo which struck the USS Indianapolis. And within just 12 minutes, the entire ship was completely sunken underwater. And about 300 out of the 1,100 men on board couldn't escape the ship in time. And the other 900 or so men were stranded floating in the middle of the ocean. And within a few minutes, it became apparent to the soldiers that there were hundreds of hungry sharks right below them. Screams began to be heard coming from almost every direction in the pitch black darkness, and hundreds of soldiers began to be picked off one by one. When it was all said and done, only 317 men survived the disaster, meaning that close to 600 men were killed by sharks that night, which is why...
This is the horrific result of inbreeding. Born in 1661, King Charles II of Spain was the product of 200 years of incest that intended to strengthen the family line. He was breastfed until the age of 4 and never fully learned how to walk. Before reaching the age of 6, Charles miraculously survived a series of diseases, including chickenpox, measles, rubella, and smallpox. As an adult, he was completely illiterate and could barely chew or speak due to his deformed jaw and enlarged tongue. He was so ugly and disfigured that his own wife was terrified of him. Renowned historians Will and Ariel Durant vividly described him as short, lame, epileptic, senile, and completely bald before 35. Always on the verge of death, but completely baffling Christendom by continuing to live. His autopsy report revealed disturbing findings, stating that his heart was the size of a peppercorn, his lungs corroded, his intestines gangrenous and rotten. He had a single testicle, black as coal, and his head was full of water.
They was pulling some Targaryen crap back in the day. I don't know what the heck they was doing.
This is why you need to be careful with dating apps. On November 15th, 2017, 24-year-old Sydney Louvre decided to meet Bailey Boswell in person after speaking on Tinder for a few days. For their first date, Bailey invited Sydney to come over to her apartment that she shared with her boyfriend Aubrey Trail. 24 minutes after Sydney arrived to the apartment, her phone was turned off and Bailey and her boyfriend Aubrey murdered her and chopped her body into 13 pieces using a saw. This attack was planned by the couple for a while, and there's even surveillance footage of them going into Home Depot and buying the saw and cleaning supplies. They then scattered Sydney's remains along the roads in Clay County, Nebraska, and it was found 3 weeks later. Investigators later found out that the couple talked about gaining power by committing murders and making videos of them torturing people. At the end of it, Bailey was sentenced to life in prison and Aubrey was sentenced to death.
Beware the catfishes, man. Don't try to link up too soon.
Life advice that could save your life one day. If you're ever falling towards water in a car, open your windows immediately. If you don't, the water pressure will make it impossible to escape. If you're alone at night and you're in a shady area, pretend to call someone and make sure to mention a time of arrival and destination. You can still make an emergency call on your phone even if you have no credit or bars of reception on your network. Your phone will use any surrounding network. Never leave ice packs on wounds or swelling for more than 15 minutes. This could cause irreversible nerve damage. And if a service dog comes up to you seeming to want attention, immediately follow them and locate their owner. The dog could be using you as a last resort to get help.
So 2 alien bodies were presented to the Mexican Congress yesterday by a so-called UFO expert. They were supposedly found in Peru and said to be over 1,000 years old. Now the guy who found these alien bodies said that he didn't get them from a UFO crash. No, you see, he found them fossilized in an algae mine. And after running some tests, it was found that their DNA was over 30% unknown, meaning that they're also not products of evolution. Now we just have to take a step back here for a second, because this guy who's presenting these aliens also presented some aliens back in 2015. But you see, those aliens he claimed he found back in 2015 actually turned out to be just deformed human children. But now he's saying that he's really got it, and that these are the real aliens. But I also don't think that when humans finally find aliens that they're gonna look exactly like they do in the movies. It would just be too perfect. I think aliens are gonna end up looking something like this. And for reference, this creature actually does exist in our oceans. And I'm honestly more scared of what's lurking down there than what's lurking out in space, real or not.
This cop helped a little boy
Facts.
celebrate his birthday after no one picked him up from school. Tom woke up very excited for his birthday. He ran into his mother's bedroom to remind her that it was his birthday, but she didn't forget. She gave him some candy for breakfast and got him ready for school. She promised him a Chuck E. Cheese party with all his friends after he got out of school. Tom's mom would always pick him up late after school because she was a struggling single mother who worked a lot to pay the bills. When school ended and the bell rang, Tom was so excited he ran out of the classroom to wait for his mom outside. But that day, his mom didn't show up to pick him up from school. The teachers brought him inside and called his mom, and she picked up, but all they heard was police sirens. After a stressful workday, someone hit her car while she was backing out of her parking spot, so she was busy dealing with the cops. Tom sat there waiting and telling the teachers he was so excited to go to Chuck E. Cheese. Since no one could pick him up and the teachers had to leave, they called the police to keep him safe. And when the cops showed up, you won't believe what happened. Hit the plus for part 2.
Damn, I gotta find out part 2 for y'all, man. That was a good
Breaking
cop,
news,
though.
5 arrests have been made in the death of actor Matthew Perry, including 2 doctors, his assistant, and the ketamine queen. Perry revealed his decades-long struggle with addiction in his 2022 memoir, Friends, Lover, and the Big Terrible Thing, and how he was prescribed Vicodin after a jet ski accident on a film set in 1997. Eventually, Perry was taking up to 55 pills per day. In 2023, Perry was receiving ketamine infusions for anxiety and depression, but soon slipped back into his addiction and started getting it illegally as well. And that's when 2 medical doctors started providing him the drug off the record. One of the doctors that's been arrested wrote, quote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay, and let's find out." For a vial that cost them $12, they were charging Perry thousands of dollars. Perry eventually sought out a new source because of these expenses, one of them being Jasmine Sangha, known as the Ketamine Queen, who's also been charged in connection with another man's overdose back in 2019. On October 23rd of last year, Perry was found face down in his hot tub. He died as a result of acute effects of ketamine and drowning. Shortly after this, the defendants tried to cover up their involvement by deleting text messages and apparently forging medical records. Authorities say the ketamine queen sold the drug to Perry's assistant, Kenneth Iwamasa, who injected Perry the day he died, and the syringe was provided by Dr. P, who sold drugs to Perry in the past. 2 defendants, including Perry's assistant, have pleaded guilty to charges already, and a third has agreed to plead guilty. Dr. P and the ketamine queen could face life in prison.
This is proof that we aren't alone. Up first, in the movie Moana, we all remember this clip, right? Never thought anything of it, right? That is until you notice there is a mountain on Earth that looks exactly like that one in the movie. You can see the legs, the shoulder, and the head. And it raises the question, was there giants roaming Earth? And if so, did they base this movie off of it?
We know they'd be trying to sprinkle the truth and some of it in the media.
She stabbed her boyfriend in the eye with needles because he was looking at other women. So this happened in Florida, where 44-year-old Sandra Jimenez lost it after her and her boyfriend of 8 years were arguing about him looking at other women. But on this specific Saturday night, when the couple arrived home, Sandra attacked him when he went to lay down. She allegedly jumped on top of him with 2 syringes in her hand and jabbed him in the eye. And apparently these needles were meant to vaccinate their dogs against rabies. Sandra was then found sleeping in her car and was arrested and charged with felony aggravated battery. Can we start normalizing breaking up with her partners instead of trying to kill them?
Yeah, can we, man? That's some toxic relationships. And he was just looking.
These are the 3 worst jails on Earth. At number 3, we have the Scorpion Jail in Egypt. It's located in the middle of the desert, so it's boiling hot all year round. All jail cells are extremely small, and you're in there all by yourself. There's literally no bed or nothing. They also have a coffin jail there where they put you in a coffin and nail you shut and wait to die. At number 2, the Bangkok Hilton. You first get thrown into a cell with around 20 people, with no beds and just a bucket in the middle of the room for a toilet. And this place is so corrupt that it's either run by the prison guards who are evil or the inmates who are also evil. At number 1, we have the Black Dolphin Jail in Russia. It's out in the middle of nowhere, so there's no chance of survival if you escape. And everywhere you go, you're blindfolded, so you have no idea where you're going. The jails also have 3 layers of bars, so it's impossible to get out. And the guards here are extremely violent and harsh. And if you do anything wrong, they will most likely kill you.
Stay out of jail, kids.
24-year-old Chandra Levy was from Modesto, California when she left her hometown to pursue an internship in Washington, D.C. It was April of 2001 and she was hoping to launch a career in public service. Chandra was associated with then Congressman Gary Condit, and there was speculation that they were having an affair. On May 1st, just the next month, Chandra was reported missing by her parents because they couldn't reach her for a couple of days. When her apartment was searched, it showed recent activity as her computer was open and there was half-packed bags. It was revealed that Chandra had been jogging in Rock Creek Park the day she went missing. The investigation regarding her disappearance quickly escalated once the media was fixated on her connection with Gary. At first, Gary did not want to discuss any kind of relationship that they may have had, but eventually he admitted that they did have an affair, but he denied any involvement in her disappearance. With Gary admitting to an affair, the media went crazy. In May of 2002, Chandra's remains were found in Rock Creek Park. Because her remains were found about a year later, the evidence was limited due to decomposition. In 2010, Inwar Guandike, an undocumented immigrant, had violently attacked many women in the same park where Chandra's remains were found. Because of this, he was convicted of Chandra's murder. His conviction was based on circumstantial evidence and a fellow inmate who said that he admitted to the crime. However, once the verdict was met with skepticism by many, they felt like they didn't really have any concrete evidence that he actually did this. In 2015, his conviction ended up being overturned. As of today, no one really knows what happened to Chandra or who did this to her. There's many speculation of what could have happened, but no one really knows for sure.
I have been gone 1 week, and the shit between Russia and NATO has gone so bad that the first thing I see when I get back is Kim saying, "Never before has the threat of nuclear war been greater." Nice. I am only finding out today that after months of refusing, Joe Biden actually gave Ukraine permission to use US and UK supplied long-range missiles to strike targets inside Russia. Hearing this, Putin was freaking pissed, so he not only changed Russia's nuclear doctrine to essentially use nuclear weapons for less, but he also unveiled a brand new type of missile. Oh, and then he used that to strike a city in Ukraine, triggering explosions that went on for 3 hours. And if that wasn't enough, a French media outlet reported that the UK and France have been discussing doing a North Korea and then deploying troops to Ukraine. However, the UK's Foreign Secretary has since denied these claims. The head of NATO's military committee urged businesses to prepare for a wartime scenario and even discussed the possibility of preemptive strikes against targets in Russia, keeping in mind that NATO is strictly a defensive alliance. Oh, and just to top it all off, the New York Times even reported that some unidentified Western officials had suggested that Joe Biden could give Ukraine nuclear weapons. It's good to be back.
Dirty facts about history that they'll never teach you in school. Part 10. During Bill Clinton's sexual affair with Monica Lewinsky, she inhaled his front tail several times while he was talking on the phone with a member of Congress. On one occasion, the president inserted a cigar up Lewinsky's sniz, then put the cigar in his mouth and told her he liked it. During another encounter, Lewinsky was performing on Clinton before his erectoplasm got all over her blue dress. She kept the stained dress as an insurance policy, and it was later used as key evidence against Clinton. During World War I, French prostitutes with severe cases of syphilis charged higher rates than uninfected prostitutes. This was because soldiers infected with syphilis would be removed from the front line. In the 1950s, the KGB tried to blackmail the president of Indonesia by getting him to come to Moscow, where a bunch of women persuaded him to have intercourse with them. When the KGB showed him the footage, the president asked for extra copies, saying the Indonesian people would be proud.
This is how much different foods you need to eat to kill you, part 2. Up first, if you drink 14 bottles of water in one sitting, you will die because your kidneys cannot process it. But I don't imagine anybody being that thirsty. Next up, if you're a fan of cherries, you would have to eat 3 cherry seeds in one sitting to die. This is because they contain cyanide. Finally, you would have to eat 24 bottles of toothpaste to die. Now, I recommend that nobody tries this, and I'm sure that nobody will, but the more you know, the better.
People who are one in a million. This girl's name is Zhang Rufang, and she is over 100 years old. But a few years ago, something strange happened. She started growing a horn on her head. At first, it started off small, but now it's grown up to 6 centimeters in length. But the craziest part is, she's actually starting to grow a second horn on the other side. And doctors have offered to remove it from her head, but she refuses. Before I show you the craziest one, I just found a way you can find your celebrity lookalike, and apparently I look like Mr. Beast. If you want to know who your celebrity lookalike is, just press this link in the comments. Next up is Nang Yasoi, and he has perfect night vision. And the strange part about this is both his parents have brown eyes, but he has blue eyes. When everyone else sees darkness, he sees perfectly in the middle of the night.
Here's a test.
That's crazy to think about, man. My man got night vision, bro. I don't know how he got it, man. That's a rare trait.
See, if you or someone you know has thalassophobia. Thalassophobia is the fear of deep or open water. At level 1, we have this image, and if you look below the baby's feet, you'll realize that you can see nothing. That's what freaks people out, that you can't see anything down there, but there's a feeling like something's watching you from below. If this is making you feel unsettled, don't watch the rest, because level 2 is even worse. At level 2, we have a person falling into an expansive open body of water. To make it even worse, there's a squid-like creature hiding in the corner. And at level 3, we have the worst one yet. And it's a person swimming above a gigantic snake-like creature in the water, and we have no idea how big it is. And if you made it this far, level 4, the bonus is this creature. This photo honestly just makes me want to cry. If you survived all the levels, congrats. Make sure you send this video to a friend to see if they can pass the test and follow for more.
I think I passed that, man, with flying colors. But I ain't going out to water that deep anyway, so
If you're going to be in Paris,
I'm good.
You might want to avoid this guy, especially if you're around 12 years old. In 2014, Steven van de Velde was a rising star in the Netherlands for beach volleyball. But like a judge put it, he also had a dark side. At some point, he starts messaging a 12-year-old girl on Facebook and continued to groom her via Snapchat and Skype. In August of that year, after 3 to 4 months of chatting, he traveled to England to meet her. Keep in mind, Stephen is 19 years old at this time, and he knew this girl was 12. When the girl's mother was out of the house, Stephen supplied her with alcohol before R-wording her several times, and he did this again at a lake nearby. The next day, he flies back home, probably assuming he's going to get away with it. But in January 2016, he was extradited back to the UK and arrested. 2 months later, he pleads guilty to 3 counts of R-wording a minor. The victim ended up making a statement in court about how this traumatic experience affected her, saying that she had at times harmed herself and even survived an OD. A UK judge sentenced him to 4 years in prison and basically said his dreams of performing at the Olympics were crushed. But unfortunately, he was wrong. His conviction was substituted for Dutch law, which was basically way less, and he only served 1 year in prison. In his first interview talking about the crime in 2018, he said that he was a lost teenager still figuring things out. Apparently, Stephen has shown no remorse, and the people around him don't seem to care at all. He's currently married with a young child and bound for the 2024 Olympics.
Scientists
That's
are planning to
insane.
bring back these prehistoric animals. Recently, a company based in Dallas, Texas by the name of Colossal Biosciences announced that they've raised over $150 million to bring back these 2 extinct animals. The company specializes in bioscience and genetics. They believe that within the next 5 years, they'll be able to bring back the woolly mammoth, along with the dodo bird, which has been extinct for a few hundred years. The company claims that through using the DNA found in frozen woolly mammoths that died thousands and thousands of years ago, they'll be able to fuse it with the DNA of a modern-day Asian elephant to create a living woolly mammoth. They're claiming that we could be seeing living and breathing woolly mammoths within the next 4 years. The company is planning to use this technology to bring back animals that go extinct in the future, but many people believe that they shouldn't be messing with nature. What do you guys think?
Don't mess with nature, man. You're messing with the natural balance of things.
Gross habits that are actually good for you. Burping after you eat a meal is actually good for your stomach because it helps relieve it of air. When you bite your nails, you consume some of the bacteria that's on them. This makes your immune system start producing white blood cells, which helps fight bacteria. Studies show that kids who suck on their thumbs or bite their nails are less likely to suffer from allergies. Taking showers washes away your essential oils, which are necessary to protect and hydrate your skin. So it's healthy if you skip showers every once in a while.
Look at what just happened.
Who skipped a shower?
Saudi Arabia's Riyadh airport. There was a flight to China that was delayed. I mean, delays are pretty common in airports. So a big crowd of Chinese people started to protest. But not only that, the things they were chanting got people very, very confused.
Go back to China?
You know, people these days protest for the dumbest reasons. And the things people chant in these protests are even dumber than those reasons.
Was he spitting, bro? They were protesting. Go back to China.
These inmates used
What?
AC vents to conceive a baby without ever meeting in person. 29-year-old Daisy Link and 24-year-old Joanne DeBaz are facing separate murder charges and are staying at the same prison. While they were both awaiting trial, they began communicating with each other through the air conditioning vents in their cells. Despite the unusual circumstances, they formed a close bond. During one of these air vent conversations, Joanne told Daisy that he always had a desire to have a child, but since he was incarcerated, this may never happen. He then told Daisy that if he ever had the choice, he would choose her to be the mother of his child. Before long, the two had developed a plan to conceive. They came up with this plan that they were going to use the same air vent system that they used to communicate. Over the course of a month, Joanne would carefully wrap his in plastic wrap about 5 times a day and roll it just like a cigarette. He would put it through the air vent system, and once it reached Daisy's cell, she would carefully take it out. Once it reached Daisy, she used an applicator to insert the fluid inside of her body. After a few attempts, Daisy found out she was pregnant. In December of 2023, Daisy called her family with the great news that she was pregnant, and she told them that she had originally asked staff for a pregnancy test back in November, but they were ignoring her request until December. On June 19th of this year, Daisy gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and now that baby girl lives with Daisy's mother. Jail officials were initially concerned about how Daisy got pregnant. They thought maybe she got SA'd by one of the inmates or staff members, but once they did a DNA test, it did confirm that Joanne was the father of the baby. Daisy stated that she was surprised that this plan even worked, but felt like everything happens for a reason. After the incident, the two ended up becoming separated, but they do communicate through phone calls and video chats with their daughter.
Yesterday.
That's crazy, man. Prison babies? That has to be stopped, man. I don't know how that plan even worked, but they was determined to have that baby, and they did. So that plan went off without a hitch, I guess, for them. What's going on in this video, man? Let's analyze this. Two men arguing at like a press conference. Not at a, the conference thing. Seems like it's a bad situation to me. Yeah, something definitely went down.
You've been lied to your entire life. On one of the first Thanksgiving feasts, according to historical reports, natives' heads were kicked through the streets while settlers feasted. Now, the traditional Thanksgiving narrative focuses on an event that supposedly happened in 1621, and it was a feast of peace between the English colonists and the Wampanoag peoples that called that area home. Now, you can buy into this narrative if you want, that this was a friendly, happy day, and I understand why something like that is celebrated by Americans. A day of peace, of love, of prosperity, and happiness, sharing a meal with people you love. But in reality, Thanksgiving, as we know it today, is really based on a series of massacres. These massacres took place in the year 1637, and were perpetrated by the colonists against the Pequot peoples of Connecticut. But the third massacre is what we're going to focus on. The Mystic Massacre, one of the most disturbing events that I never learned about in school. On that day, fearing that the Pequot people were going to form an alliance with other indigenous tribes nearby to force the colonists out of the area, a group of colonists surrounded a Pequot fort filled with men, women, and children and set it on fire. Callously, this fire quickly engulfed the entire fortress, and as men, women, and children ran out of the fort to escape the flames, they were gunned down or stabbed by colonists. It's estimated that during this Mystic Massacre, over 400 people were murdered. And the day after these massacres, the governor of Massachusetts, upon hearing of this victory, he would declare it a Thanksgiving. This is a quote from him. He wrote down, "For the next 100 years, every Thanksgiving day ordained by a governor was in honor of the bloody victory, thanking God that the battle had been won." But this massacre was more horrific than words can describe. That same governor of Massachusetts, William Bradford, also wrote of this entire massacre, saying, "It was a fearful sight to see them thus frying in the fire and the streams of blood quenching the same." But he also wrote that the deaths of the innocent Pequot men, women, and children were a, quote, "sweet sacrifice," for which the colonists, quote, "gave their praise thereof to God." I mean, we already know that there's an extremely troubling history of violence against indigenous people that's been completely covered up by the United States. I was raised in South Dakota, and I made a whole documentary years ago just about the lost indigenous burial mound in my hometown of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, that have been paved over, that have been destroyed to make way for, commercial buildings and even highways. But this is something that needs to be taught in schools, because the whole history of Thanksgiving and the holiday is so much darker than they would like you to believe it is. And these are things and problems and issues that we're still dealing with nowadays. I, for one, would love to believe in the narrative that this holiday was based solely on a peaceful feast shared between colonists and the local indigenous tribes. But we also, as a country, have to acknowledge the horrific things that happened back then. These are things that can't just be glazed over or omitted from history books. These are things we need to learn about early on so that we can never perpetrate those things.
This kid exists. Aria Pramana weighs over 400 pounds. His family says he doesn't do anything but eat and sleep. His mom said she wanted to find a medical reason why he looked like that. But it turns out Aria was just eating 2 plates 5 times a day. Before I continue, I know an app just like TikTok just in case it gets banned. Link is in my bio. Aria's family has put him on a strict diet ever since. And it's actually working.
I still can't get over the fact that this woman was released from prison after she drugged her little sister, gave her to her husband so he could execute her and take her life. Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka were called the Barbie and Ken Killers and committed one of the most horrific crimes together. They tore us and took the lives of these 3 innocent young teens in the early 90s. 15-year-old Kristen French was one of their victims. She was abducted in a church parking lot while Carla pretended to ask her for directions. Paul forced her into their car. In another case, 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey was abducted while she waited outside of her house. This was Carla's younger sister, Tammy, and one day Paul told Carla that he wanted her, so she tricked her sister and gave her to Paul to do whatever he wants with her. The girls were tortured for days and disgusting things were done to them while they videotaped everything. Together, they dismembered their bodies and then threw them in a lake. Now, while Paul got life in prison, Carla was able to walk free after 12 years. But not only that, after her release, she changed her name and she was caught working at a private elementary school in Montreal. Her job was to supervise kindergarten students, and when their parents found out, they were pissed off. And I don't blame them, because I wouldn't want this person looking after my children either. This was one of the biggest cases in the world, especially in Canada, because of how disturbing their crimes were. People are still confused on how Carla was able to get such a good deal while Paul was denied parole 3 times and will most likely spend the rest of his life in prison.
Here are some kids' toys that got banned for being too dangerous. This toy, called a Jibba Jabber. The object of this toy was to beat it up. It was pulled from the shelves after being linked to making kids want to strangle each other. Pokemon and Burger King partnered up and made these tiny keychain Pokeballs with no holes in it for like a child to breathe that might try to eat the toy, because that's what kids do. They just eat tiny things. Kids fucking died from these. Moon shoes were like these half buckets with rubber bands and Velcro to keep your feet attached to them. And it was capable of launching a child like feet into the air. So many kids broke their ankles and cracked their skulls because of these. I remember I got them for Christmas and then my parents immediately took them away. This Quick Click Polly Pocket set were tiny pieces of plastic with magnets embedded into them. Sounds yummy. Definitely not like we're taking the trip to the hospital.
Those kids, man. With those toys, I didn't even know about the moon shoes. I think I remember seeing them. All those discontinued toys, man. It goes to show you, man. When people think there's money involved, man, they really don't think about the safety, man, of the kids of their product.
Wholesome facts that'll make your day slightly better. Part 2. If you've already made it to the airport without dying, you shouldn't be nervous about flying, because you've already made it through the deadliest part of plane travel. Whenever you pet an animal, it actually lowers your cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. Side note, this may not work on electric eels, porcupines, or anything that could decimate you in 2 seconds.
You think?
Because guinea pigs get lonely, it's actually illegal in Switzerland to own just one. You have to get at least 2 if you want to have any at all. Sometimes tarantulas will keep tiny frogs as pets. The frogs will eat small insects that would typically eat the tarantula eggs, and in exchange, the frog gets a pretty damn good bodyguard. Capybara Land is a place in Japan where you can quite literally hang out with capybaras and see them chilling in hot springs. If 99% of the world's population finds you unattractive, that would mean that 78 million people still find you attractive.
You gotta change, man. 1 in 78 million. Get out there. You know what this is, man. Expert level.
Ants can live a really long time. Like, way longer than I thought. Your normal everyday ant can live like 4 to 15 years. And there have been queens on record living up to 28 years. Next time I have to step on an ant, I'm really gonna be like mourning their whole ass life. This is the hognose snake, and when it feels threatened, it'll puff itself up and hiss at you. But if that doesn't work, it'll flip itself over and play dead. And if you take the snake and flip it from its back to its belly, it'll just flip itself back over. Like, no, I'm supposed to be dead. Hey penguins are able to drink salt water like it's fresh water because they have this gland behind their eyes that actually filters their blood and allows them to sneeze the salt out. Now, I'm not saying that we need to hire a bunch of penguins to save the world or whatever, but it's an option.
Happy feet
The
domination,
rarest
man.
things in the world. Rarest animal, vaquita, only 10 left in the wild. Rarest gem on earth, pay knife worth $60,000 per carat. Rarest poker hand, the royal flush, winning 655,000 chance. Rarest element on earth, as the time, less than 1 gram on earth exists. Rarest car, Ferrari 250, Gran Turismo.
These are some of the most terrifying illnesses that you could get tomorrow.
Giants caught on tape part 1. People used to tell stories about ancient giants who used to walk around the earth with humans. Some people say they lived with us as friends, and some say they ate us. These giants were called Nephilim, mentioned in the Bible. This is supposedly a picture in 1890 of one of them. And yes, this is real footage of him walking around Japan in a parade. Look how big he is compared to all the little people. Even the horses. Look at him towering over everybody. How much did this guy need to eat to be full? So what do you guys think? Is this fake? Or are they real, hiding in places we'll just never be able to find? I got more giant.
Think giants are out there, man? Maybe back in the day, I guess they were like so tall, people considered them giants. I guess that's my only explanation to explain that.
Footage, so like this video for a part 2.
Crazy facts about cigarettes. 1 cigarette can reduce your lifespan up to 11 minutes. Out of 10 smokers, 9 started before age 18. A smoker's life expectancy is 10 years less than a non-smoker. When a cigarette is burned, 7,000 chemicals are activated. Nauru has the highest smoking rate at 52%.
Imagine
Don't smoke.
accidentally finding a box that someone chained shut and threw into the ocean. Curious about what could be inside it, you take the box home and leave it in your shed. But as you're having dinner, you hear noises outside your front door. And when you open the door to check, you see that the box is somehow right there. Who's out there, you yell, thinking someone must have taken it from the shed and dropped it at your front door. You bring the box inside and put it on your table, and that's when you see the box is moving by itself. That's enough, you tell yourself, and you throw the box outside and go to sleep. But in the middle of the night, you suddenly wake up with something stuck inside your throat. You rush to the bathroom, coughing uncontrollably until you spit out a key. Confused and terrified, you leave the bathroom only to see an even more unbelievable sight. The box has somehow appeared in the middle of your hallway. So do you use the key to open the box and finally find out what's inside of it? This short film is called Mystery Box, and it was such a strange and unique story that I really enjoyed. Definitely check this one out and follow for more.
I ain't checking that box out, bro. Throwing it right back. Especially after seeing that key. Nothing good could come from opening that box, bro. I'm good on that. Deuces.
This surveillance camera caught this 73-year-old's final moments before he was murdered by this man over a $20,000 Rolex. And you guys won't believe this, but this guy who took his life did this all because he wanted to gift his girlfriend something nice for Christmas. This all happened last month when 56-year-old Nenad Milosevic met with his friend 73-year-old Anthony at around 10 p.m. at night. Anthony owned a jewelry store in Fort Lauderdale, and on that night, surveillance footage shows them entering the building and then taking the elevator to go upstairs to his shop after they went out for dinner. Apparently, Nenad wanted to buy jewelry for his girlfriend for Christmas, but things went horribly wrong. After entering the shop on the 3rd floor, Nenad was seen leaving 2 hours later on his own, carrying a bag and something covered with a towel. Anthony was reported missing on September 20th, but his body was found 3 days later in his shop by police, and the autopsy showed that he had injured his neck, back, and head. Eventually, he did admit to murdering his 73-year-old friend and to stealing 20 pieces of jewelry, which he ended up throwing over a bridge. Nenad was eventually charged with 2nd-degree murder.
All over some jewelry.
The gunfire captured at the end of that clip took the life of 26-year-old Melisha Jackson and her 1-year-old son, Isaac. On December 17, 2019, Melisha and Isaac were just hanging out in their home. And that's when a group of masked men approached the back of the home. 3 men then opened fire into the back door of the home and killed Melisha and Isaac. Sadly, Isaac was actually in his mother's arms when they were both shot and killed. Just a few days after the shooting, this man, Thomas Anthony Henderson, was announced as a suspect. At the time of the shooting, he was still a teenager. Thomas is currently still in prison for this crime, but there are 2 other men that were involved in the shooting that were never brought to justice. If you know anything about the murders of Melisha or Isaac Jackson, please contact local authorities, because this story is absolutely horrific. These 2 were just hanging out at home. The gunmen were trying to target someone involved in a gang, but these 2 were not the intended targets, and in fact, the initial target wasn't even shot. Also, if you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast that my wife and I co-host, Murder in America, available on all streaming platforms.
To think we were actually impressed when this first came out in 2023. Extremely grainy and chaotic, with each clip only being like 2 seconds long. Not to mention, the backgrounds, movements, and pretty much everything going on in the videos is just totally warped and doesn't visually make any sense. More of a bad trip than a realistic simulation, but it's a start. Then in 2024, we get a serious update. It's looking much better. Full HD, and there's a sort of consistency in the video where things aren't just morphing in and out of shape anymore. You'll still notice some movements that are kind of creepy and jerky, or objects that just forget how they were supposed to be oriented. Overall, it still has a very uncanny type of feel to it. Like, we can obviously tell what we're looking at isn't real life, but now, 2025 just brought it to a whole new level. Actually, no. This is a real video Will Smith took himself in 2024 as a parody to all the AI videos of him eating spaghetti. But it does give us a sort of control test of what we're working towards. Because this is AI Will Smith eating spaghetti in 2025. The future is here. Huge improvements over...
Man, it's scary, bro. Like how AI is constantly keep getting better and better and better than each year. You ain't gonna be able to tell the difference no more. And people are already getting food now. Just imagine, like 10 or 20 years from now, you can't distinguish a real video from a fake video. It's getting scary out
For
here,
2024, at first glance, it almost looks 100% real. But if you look really close, you'll see a few unnatural movements and subtle transformations that just don't make much sense. But clearly, we're making great progress, and soon enough, we're going to be able to generate videos of anyone doing anything, and we're not even going to be able to tell whether they're real or AI. Hold up, should we be concerned?
You won't believe how this mother lost her daughter. Jeannie Diddy had a daughter named Macy Gray. They looked so happy together, and one day she said her 2-year-old choked on a banana. Sadly, her daughter passed away. Jeannie was so heartbroken that she had these pictures made. It was her grieving with the ghost of her daughter. Sometimes things aren't what they seem. Turns out that she only got those photos made to look innocent. Jeannie and her boyfriend Zach actually abused her daughter, winded up killing her. Rest in peace, Macy.
Pictures, man. Never tell the full story.
Where do you think this person is from? What about this person? Or this person? You might have guessed these people to be Indigenous Australians, or perhaps people of the Pacific Islands, or even Africans. But they're actually members of various Adivasi tribes found in India. The people I showed you were specifically part of the Irula and Punya tribes. Now, according to the Out of Africa theory, humans first entered South Asia or India around 70,000 years ago. We refer to the people that formed a hunter-gatherer society in South Asia as the AASI. All South Asians partially descend from these early Homo sapiens that entered the subcontinent. Apparently, around 22% of my own DNA is derived from these ancient people. But the reason these tribal communities in India are so fascinating is because up to 70% of their DNA is derived from the AASI. And so some refer to them as the Indigenous people of India, a debated title.
Other than that, I never guessed they were, I guess, from that part of the world. Goes to show you, man. People, man, you can't judge them based on how they look. You never know where they come from. You know what that is.
Could these be zombie hands? Hello, my friend. My name is Aslan, and today we're looking at something called dead man's fingers, also known as Zolaria polymorphia. Believe it or not, this is actually a fungus. As you probably guessed, it gets the name dead man's fingers from the fact that it looks like a zombie hand reaching out of the ground. Funny enough, it actually grows around the base of dying trees. This picture is probably the creepiest to me because it looks like the toes of a corpse. And that's our first episode of Spooky Season.
It does look like Dead Man's Hands.
11, 5, 5, 9 and 20 miles today, 4, 11, 17, 32 the day before. Boost, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. Don't look at what's in front of you. Boost, 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 moving up and down again. Men go mad with watching them. There's no discharge in the war. If your eyes drop, they will get the top of you. Boost, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war.
Did y'all know cruise ship graveyards were a thing? Because if you didn't, you do now. A cruise ship graveyard is, get this, a graveyard for cruise ships. And it's just a bunch of absolutely massive ships in a water yard just chilling there because they're not being used and will never be used ever again because they're either damaged or whatever. Could you imagine exploring this place at night? You would have to pay me $1 million to go anywhere close to these. Do you know how big these things are? So this is like a modern cruise ship, okay? Like, look how massive this thing is. Like, we're gonna focus right there in the pool area, okay? That's how tiny the people are in comparison to this gigantic ship. Looking at that again, and then that. No thank you. And also, this is the size of the Titanic in comparison to a modern day cruise ship, which is about 4 times as big. And we all know how big Titanic was. Why these people? Are those children or are those? No, those are adults. Oh my God, look how big they are. It's small. Look how small they are in comparison to this gigantic bottom of the ship. This photo made my stomach drop into the pit of my butt when I saw it this morning. I actually kind of love this. I love this for her, this goat chilling with this dog in front of a ship graveyard. I would not be joining the goat. I just want to know what these people are on to be able to get in kayaks and go anywhere near these abandoned ships. Like, that's just horrific. Could you go in a kayak and go anywhere near these abandoned ships? And here's the inside of one of the cruise ships when it was turned sideways. Look at that, is nauseating. Like, imagine being on a cruise ship and it starts sinking and then you go outside and you see this in the hallway. Titanic all over again. This is so scary. So yeah, anyway, how are we feeling about these ship graveyards? Would you go near them?
No!
If you walk into this forest, you might never walk out. At least, that's what the legend says. This creepy slideshow that I got tagged in shows an image of a strange clearing in a forest, some images of UFOs that many people actually believe are real, and finally mentions the name of the forest, the Hoabasiu. The Hoabasiu is located in Romania, or Transylvania to be precise, and it's long been thought to be one of the most paranormal places on the earth. This forest is very old, however trees look very young, and as you can see, they have a lot of very weird curves and formations. And many people that are born in this area are warned never step foot in the forest because evil presences live there. It's rumored that many people that have walked into the forest have never come out, so it's kind of like a Bermuda Triangle, and even time travel has been involved here. With people that have gone missing for years on end, suddenly reappear, they don't remember where they were, but they look the exact same. Personally, I think that I would go into this, or at least take a tour of this tourist, but what about you guys?
See, cause y'all going into there? I see there's like a whole area where there's nothing but grass and it's in a whole circle. Nah, I'm good, love. Yeah, I got that. I take heed of the warnings. Yeah, I know why the people didn't.
Creepy urban legends from each state, Part 1, Arizona.
The ghost of Slaughterhouse Canyon. During the 1800s, there was a family who lived in the canyon. They were very poor, so the father would venture out into the canyon for food for his family. As you might have guessed, one day the father did not return, so his family slowly starved and descended into madness. The mother, unable to bear listening to her children cry anymore, put on her wedding dress, murdered the children, and threw them into a nearby river. The next day, she succumbed to starvation herself. The legend states that if you go down to Slaughterhouse Canyon at night, even now you will hear loud, anguished cries of the mother who lost her mind.
Stay from Slaughterhouse Canyon. Noted.
She says, it's his fingers.
father confesses in detail the horrific moment his infant was being eaten alive by rats.
What do you think the explanation is? In your mind, what do you think it is? Instantly was the rats.
50 rat bites. That's how many bites a poor 6-month-old baby had all over his body after his parents left rats to nearly eat him alive.
I've seen blood everywhere, his diaper was half hanging off of him. I haven't seen his hands on it. He went to the bathroom and took a worse blood, like they had a nosebleed. She says, it's his fingers. Yeah, I've seen his fingers. Mostly fingers? Yes. He had marks on his head. Right. Were those marks new or they're in there? Okay. What do you think the explanation is? In your mind, what do you think it is? Instantly was a rat.
The infant was left in a pool of blood with his tiny fingers gnawed down to the bone. He nearly died from blood loss and is now permanently disfigured.
So that's a point that they didn't know him all right. Anybody ever been bit before? No. By a rat? Anybody? Any kids? You? No. Rat? Me? No.
He was living in a true house of horrors. It was in deplorable conditions, infested with rats and full of clutter, trash, bugs, and feces. The baby's mauling wasn't the first rat attack at the home. 3 other children had previously been bitten while sleeping. The Indiana Department of Child Services had provided aid to address safety concerns beforehand. The father has denied these allegations.
There's never been none of those children been bitten by rats during the night, or at all.
Prosecutors said the baby's father, David Schoenebaum, failed to address issues that would have provided the children with a safe environment to live in.
But specifically, when you pick him up, you see the injuries, you mean, in your mind, you're like, rats did this. There's nothing else could have caused this. Yeah.
David Schoenebaum was sentenced to 16 years in prison after a jury convicted him of 3 felonies related to the neglect and endangerment of his children. His wife, Angel Schoenebaum, and Schoenebaum's sister-in-law, Delana Thurman, was given probation. We hope in some way the baby can heal from this traumatizing incident.
After watching this movie, I'm realizing that we need to bring back haunted object horror movies because look at this. Freaky as hell. So I got to see an early screening of The Monkey, which comes out February 21st, and it's not because I am cool, it's because Justin over at Slaughterhouse is very cool, and he got a private screening, and I was like, hello, can I tag along? And I didn't really know anything about the movie other than the fact that it's based on a short story from Stephen King, and it's brought to us by Osgood Perkins, who also brought us Long Legs. And if you're expecting something like Long Legs, wipe your mind of that baby, because it is nothing like that. The gist of the movie is about these twin brothers who have this inherited haunted monkey toy thing, and when he bangs his little drum, crazy things happen. I went into this thinking it was going to be like Long Legs, like very dreadful and very serious. No, it is bonkers and batshit crazy and bloody and gory and hilarious. It's a horror comedy. I didn't know that. And I know the trailer shows a ton of the death scenes, but I promise you, that's not even that half of it. I do have to warn you though, because this is a horror comedy, a lot of these death scenes are like very gratuitous and very over the top. So just keep an open mind that this is like a very just fun, silly, unserious movie when it comes to that. Overall, I gave The Monkey 3.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. This one's just a fun one. You can sit back, turn your brain off, enjoy all the chaotic craziness that's going on.
This story truly infuriates me. This woman was forced to marry this man, and only a few weeks later, she was found murdered. This is about 20-year-old Rukia Hadari, who moved from Afghanistan to Australia with her family at a very young age. In 2019, Rukia was forced by her mother to marry 25-year-old Muhammad Ali only 2 weeks after her mom introduced them. Leading up to the wedding day in November, Rukia was going around telling her friends, teachers, and counselors that she did not want to go through with the wedding, but had no choice because her mom told her that she had to do it. Before their wedding day, Rukia and Muhammad had only seen each other a few times, and during the ceremony, it's clear that she does not look happy or excited at all. After their ceremony, Rukia moved across the country to live with Muhammad, leaving her friends and family behind, and things quickly took a turn. Only 6 weeks after their wedding, Rukia's life was savagely taken by Muhammad after he got upset that she was not cooking or cleaning for him. He even took this video moments before he took her life and sent it to her family to try to embarrass her. Muhammad slit her throat with a kitchen knife, and then he called her brother to let him know what he did, and then he turned himself in. But here's the twist. Not only was Muhammad charged with murder and sentenced to life in prison, Rukia's mother was also found guilty and was the first person in Australia to be convicted of causing a person to enter into a forced marriage.
This picture famously surfaced from 1941 because something looks very off about it. This guy, a lot of people cite this picture as proof of time travel because not only does he seemingly look very modern and out of place, but he also appears to be holding a camera that's very small, too small for any commercial grade camera of 1941. But let me explain why this is debunked. The modern t-shirt he's wearing, it's a logo for the Montreal Maroons, which was a hockey team from the 40s. The glasses were also available. They had protective side shields in the 40s too. But what about that camera? It's small enough to be a digital camera, but they did not have commercial grade cameras that were this small in the 40s. Incorrect. Kodak confirmed of a rare model of a small portable camera that was limited, but it was available by 1941, which makes this photo completely plausible.
Damn, debunked time travel just like that.
So I'm obsessed with the dark side of Disney. And did you know there's a horrible period of accidents at Disneyland that doesn't really get talked about a lot? It's been referred to as the Disney Dark Ages. It was from 1997 to 2003 when this guy, Paul Pressler, was the president of Disneyland. Paul basically decided they were no longer going to do scheduled maintenance on rides. They were only going to fix rides when they were broken. Did it save money? Sure. But this resulted in some of the worst accidents the park had ever seen. One of the worst being that of Brandon Zucker. In 2001, Brandon Zucker was on the Roger Rabbit ride, which was already having maintenance issues. An employee put Brandon on the wrong side of the car, and when he put the lap band down, it didn't close all the way. So at one point in the ride, Brandon tumbled out of his seat and was hit by an oncoming car. The car pinned him and dragged him down the track before anyone could do anything. Also, at the time, Disney employees were not allowed to call 911. They had to call park emergency services, who then called 911. So it took a while for anyone to come get Brandon. He did survive the accident, but he had brain damage so bad he was nonverbal and lost a lot of motor skills for the rest of his life. And eventually he passed away at 13 years old. The FBI suspects a serial killer works as a trucker to find victims and then dispose of their bodies across state lines to confuse police. And that's what they think happened to Tammy Jo Zawicki. This college student was driving from Evanston, Indiana to Grinnell, Iowa when her car broke down in Illinois. Yet her body was found 9 days later across I-44 in Missouri. She was last seen on August 23rd, 1992, standing near her broken down car, at mile marker 83 on I-80. And there was a semi-truck with a rusty orange stripe parked near her car. It seems like he was trying to help her, but the FBI thinks he was waiting to grab her. Tammy's body was found on a rural stretch of I-44 in southwestern Missouri. She was wrapped in a red blanket and surrounded by duct tape. She'd been stabbed once in the arm and 7 times in a circle around her heart. According to the FBI, she'd also been essayed. Witnesses described the driver of the tractor trailer being a white male 35 to 40, 6 feet tall, and with bushy dark hair. The trucker she was last seen alive with has not been identified. Illinois investigators think this could be a trucker by the name of Lonnie Beardrot. He matched the description at the time, and his trailer home is near where her body was found. And Tammy's body was found wrapped in a blanket with the Kenworth logo, and Lonnie drove a Kenworth truck. But to be fair, Kenworth is a large manufacturer. Lonnie Beardrot died, but he isn't the only suspect. Because of the interstate connection, this person could be from almost anywhere. Several other serial killers' names have been brought up in connection to Tammy's case, but as of right now, it's unsolved. Let me know if you want to hear more about highway serial killers and their possible victims. And follow if you like true crime.
Sick world we in, man. Probably have no freaking suspects because, like I said, the highway is so vast they can come from anywhere. Danger lurks around every corner nowadays. You have to be careful. At it. Call them like we see it, man. If it got spiny edits, comment down below.
Discoveries, Part 2. After a Chinese construction company caused a reservoir to sink 10 feet, a 600-year-old Buddha carving was uncovered. Underwater archaeologists even found evidence of an ancient temple beneath the 12-foot statue. This ancient sapphire ring is believed to have belonged to Caligula, the third emperor of Rome. It includes an engraved portrait of his fourth and final wife, Caesonia. Here's the before and after of an ancient Greek stadium found in modern-day Turkey. It was built around the 1st century AD and once held a capacity of 30,000 people. The Orkney hood was found in a Scottish peat bog in 1867. Despite its immaculate condition, the garment is around 1,500 years old. 1,600-year-old sling bullets from ancient Rome have been found with the words "Take that" inscribed on them. Often considered the Sistine Chapel of ancient Egypt, this is the 3,200-year-old tomb of Queen Nefertari. The paintings are said to be the best preserved and most detailed decorations of any Egyptian burial site by far.
This woman was caught putting Roundup in her husband's Mountain Dew. This man from Missouri went to police after his home surveillance camera caught his wife, 47-year-old Michelle Peters, pouring Roundup, which is a chemical weed killer, into his favorite drink. He became a little suspicious in the beginning of May when he noticed that his Mountain Dew was tasting a little off. At first, he ignored the strange taste and continued to drink it, but a couple of weeks later, he began vomiting and having a sore throat. Then on June 12th, he reviewed surveillance footage in his garage where he kept his Mountain Dew in a fridge, and it shows his wife pouring the Roundup straight into the Mountain Dew bottle. Around that same time, he had told her that he was feeling sick, and all she said was that he probably had COVID and to stay away from the grandkids. Eventually, he went to police and Michelle was arrested, and at first her defense was that she mixed the Mountain Dew with the Roundup because she wanted to create this strong weed killer, and she had seen this on Pinterest. But eventually, she admitted to everything, and she said she did it because she was mad at her husband for being unappreciative after she threw him a 50th birthday party. She then expressed that she regretted it and she should have just divorced him. She was charged with first-degree domestic assault and armed criminal action. Imagine if you're...
Man, if y'all just in a relationship and it ain't working, just split up. Don't go to the extreme. Like what she did, man. Caught her on 4K as well. Pouring that in his Mountain Dew. People, man. It's like when they get upset, it makes them do the most craziest and bizarre things, man. Viewing these clips together with you guys, Seekers. Blows my mind every time.
Grandparents just disappeared, like completely without a trace. Welcome to Creep Time on TikTok with Celestine. This is the haunting story of Charles and Catherine Romer. On April 8th of 1980, a wealthy elderly couple named Charles and Catherine check into a Holiday Inn right off I-95. They're just on their way home from a vacation. But to put this in context, this wasn't a usual choice for them. These were two very well-off people, so to choose a Holiday Inn, it wouldn't have been typical of them. But not long after checking into their room, the couple seemingly vanished. After 2 or 3 days, hotel management became concerned that they hadn't seen the couple leave their room, so they went to go check on them. This was only to find that their room had never been slept in. Inside the room were all of their clothes, their travel diary, and over $60,000 of Catherine's jewelry. Hotel staff then goes out to the parking lot and finds that their car is missing, but no one ever saw them leave. At the time, only one witness comes forward saying that they saw this car miles away at a restaurant circuit. But after they interviewed people at the restaurant, nobody remembered seeing this couple. Despite search efforts, they were never found after that night, and no one really knows what happened to them.
What the hell happened to the Romers, man? Just vanished?
In 1988, the entire classroom of students disappeared. Today, 40 years later, an elderly woman recounted the chilling truth. Sophie Reed arrived at the police station claiming she knew the truth behind the disappearance of an entire classroom of students in 1988. The police were astonished because this mystery had haunted the country for 40 years. Sophie began her account. It was a clear Tuesday in April 1988 when Mr. Hemington led his students into the woods for a geography lesson. Suddenly, at 3 o'clock as the bell chimed, Mr. Hemington and the children mysteriously vanished. The principal immediately alerted the police, and more officers and parents joined the search, but they found no trace of them. This event gradually evolved into an inexplicable mystery, becoming an unsolvable nightmare. Sophie then revealed a startling secret that left the police present in shock. Police officers thought that crimes like this only happened in movies. In the next part, I will show the interview with the missing teacher. So press the plus button and comment, teacher, for more details in part 2.
Damn, man, we're gonna have to find out part 2 for you guys, Seekers. We gotta figure out what happened to the mystery of those kids. Man. What do you guys think happened?
Let's talk about this couple who cheated on the show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and thought they got away with it.
You just want 1 minute!
This all happened in 2001 when Charles Ingram was a contestant on the show, while his wife Diana and a man named Tecklin Whitcock were in the audience helping him cheat the entire time. So how exactly did they notice that Charles was cheating? Well, throughout the entire show, the sound technician noticed a loud coughing coming from the audience at specific times after Charles spoke.
I don't think it's an animal. Megatron. Mega. Yeah. I don't think it's Megatron.
I'm sure it's Google.
After
4K.
reviewing the footage, they noticed that the coffee came specifically from Tequin and Diana whenever Charles mentioned the right answer after the 4 options. They were able to catch a total of 19 coughs, which came from his wife and Tequin, which signaled the correct answers. But not only that, Charles' strategy throughout the game was very odd because he would state the 4 options out loud, and it was clear that he didn't know the answer, but somehow he always got it right. Then what producers found strange was that after Charles got every question right and won £1 million, he was seen arguing with his wife backstage. At the time Charles left the set, they began investigating and they did not hand over the money to him. All 3 of them were found guilty of conspiring to cheat, but till this day they've maintained their innocence, and Tequin still argues that his coughing was because he had allergies and it was all a coincidence. Ultimately, if Charles didn't cheat, he would have only won £1,000 that night.
This is a good reminder to...
You got caught in 4K, bro. Cheating. At a game show like that, man, you know there's cameras like probably angled everywhere, so there's no way you could get away with cheating like that. It's too much evidence. That's insane.
To double check every single nook and cranny in your house. Because in 2019, this couple came home after a week-long vacation to see that there was a stranger living in their home. And he had most likely been living there while they were also in the house. Also, if you like these kinds of stories, you'll like tonight's episode. Upon arriving home after a week away, Josh Campbell tried the front door of his house, but there was a stranger on the inside pulling it closed. That stranger was 26-year-old Ezekiel Zayas, and yes, this is a video he left on their personal computers. The 2 were able to call the police and eventually get him out of the house, but that's when they saw all of the terrifying stuff he had been up to in the home. He also left them videos on their computers that included incredibly personal information that they had only shared with each other, meaning that he had been listening to their conversations. But the worst part was the knives. Ezekiel had left notes in the house about surgeries that he wanted to perform on the family, like a hand transplant. And when the couple went into their bedroom, they saw that there were knives and other utensils all around the bed. It seemed like he was preparing to do some sort of operation on them. Frogging stories are absolutely terrifying, and I don't want to give too much away, but you might be spooked by tonight's episode.
Do you ever see a picture that
That's
just
insane.
makes your stomach drop? This is a still from an alert that a woman named Alexis Randall got on her phone. It's from a security camera that was set up in her living room, but she's looking at this and she's thinking the same thing you are. She's like, what's wrong with the picture here? Why did the motion detector go off? But then look a bit closer, specifically at the bathroom door. This man was staring at the camera from the doorway. She spots this picture and she immediately panics and calls the police, but by the time they get there, this guy is gone. What really freaked her out even more is that when police got there, they found evidence that the bathroom window had been tampered with. Further security footage would show that the man had crawled through the bathroom window the night before and was hiding in the hallway bathroom all through the night, even while she was in the house. And if you guys are loving Creep Time, make sure to go follow on Insta.
How the hell? And nobody called him, man? He was just standing there the whole time? How do people begin to these houses and we don't be noticing, man?
This is one of the most terrifying urban legends I've ever heard, and it ended up being true. But in Canada, there was this legend that one night a bunch of people saw a bright blue light in the sky, and the next day an entire village of people disappeared. But it turns out that legend is rooted in something that really happened. This is coming from this week's episode. I have a whole series on urban legends that ended up being true, and it's a very scary listen. So in Canada in 1930, a fur trapper named Joe LaBelle was riding in the river in his canoe when he came to a village he had seen before. Except this time when he came upon it, it looked like everyone had left in a hurry. Food was still cooking, and a bunch of dogs were barking and super hungry as if they had been left behind. But the strangest part of all of this was in the middle of the community, there was a grave that had been disturbed. And that reminded the fur trapper of a very scary story he had heard. The legend of the Torn Rack, which was this demon that supposedly stalked the area. So he starts looking for someone who might know what happened to these people. They were a nomadic people. It didn't make any sense that they would have left all of their stuff behind. And that's when he finds a man in a hospital who was potentially part of the village. The man is so freaked out. He won't say anything at first, but eventually Joe gets him to talk, and he recognizes one word that the man says. Torn Rack, the name of the evil deity that was potentially in the area. The police basically don't believe any of this, but they do acknowledge that before the disappearance, they did see blue lights in the sky that no one has been able to figure out what they were. I get more into the theories of what may have happened in this episode, and I also talk a little bit more about other urban legends that ended up being true.
What the hell? What were those blue lights, man? They can't explain it. So that speaks from truth to what the villager said, right?
Terrifying cursed objects that will haunt your dreams, Part 1. Robert the Doll. According to legend, in the early 1900s, a wealthy American family known as the Ottos committed an unspeakable offense against their young maid from the Bahamas. In an act of retaliation, the maid gifted the young Otto boy, Eugene, a doll named Robert, which had been cursed by a voodoo priestess. In the following years, Eugene would become uncomfortably close to the doll, speaking to it as if it were a real person, and becoming violently angry with anyone who looked at it without his permission, claiming that they were being disrespectful to Robert. In addition, most of the Otto family friends stopped visiting, claiming to have seen the doll move by itself, or having heard it giggling late at night. Eventually, the Otto family sent the doll to a museum to get rid of it, where it remains to this day. Thousands of people have attributed tragedies that have occurred in their life to having visited Robert the doll, and it is said that if you view it without its permission, misfortune will find you as well. Tag a friend to pass the curse along and follow for more.
I believe Robert the doll. Is that curse real?
You know, or did you know a young lady by the name of Diane Ruiz?
Yes, that was my mom.
And is there anything that you would like for the jury to consider here today as it relates to this matter?
I wrote a letter.
Can you please be so kind?
My name is Zay Romero. I'm a 19-year-old college student going for my bachelor degree in graphic design. I'm Diane Ruiz's youngest child. I was only 14 years old when she passed. Just starting my freshman year of high school, she was so excited to see me grow up. And so proud of what I was growing into. She supported me in all my dreams and only tried to help and uplift me when taking on new risks and challenges. My father unfortunately passed away when I was only 11 years old. My mother was all I had left. I was barely 2 months into my first year of high school when she passed away. I was in a marching band, and the week prior, she was telling me how excited she was to go and watch me perform at that weekend's football game. She would have been her first time seeing me perform because that was...
This man has just discovered that his wife has been murdered.
Daddy! What? What the hell? Where's my wife?
The window's broken, Dad!
But he never suspected his daughter would be the one responsible.
What happened? She's with you. Wife's dead. I was too.
On March 3rd, 2020, Akron police responded to a 911 call. This is what was waiting for them.
She was actually down for a while. There's blood all over the place. There's knife fire heads and stuff like that. There's a huge pool of blood.
As officers entered the home, they found Brenda Powell on the kitchen floor with 30 stab wounds in her neck. Her daughter Sydney was in the house and claimed it was a home invasion that escalated into a brutal murder. Initially, the responding officer didn't think Sydney was involved. However, as time rolled on, the details weren't stacking up.
Got you. Come on.
Come on. She's gonna be okay.
Sydney was arrested and charged for the murder of her mother, Brenda Powell. She entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, claiming she had no memory of what happened. The jury didn't believe Sydney, and she was found guilty on 2 counts of murder, 1 count of felonious assault, and 1 count of tampering with evidence. She was sentenced to life in prison with a chance of parole after 15 years.
Insane. Where's the sky, man? I think we narrowed those down to those are the edits.
When the greatest
this Crusader king led just 500 knights and a few thousand foot soldiers against the 20,000 strong host of the great Sultan Saladin. He crushed the invading army and forced Saladin to flee for his life upon a camel, with the 16-year-old king having personally charged into the front lines despite having lost the use of his right arm to leprosy. When he was crowned king of Jerusalem on the 75th anniversary of its capture by the First Crusade, the 13-year-old was already an expert horseman with a keen intellect and a near encyclopedic knowledge of history. But when his tutor had realized that he never reacted to being pinched by his playmates, it had become clear the poor king would never bear the kingdom, nay. And so, in an act of humility, he recognized the Byzantine emperor as his overlord and even tried to give away his crown to the newly come crusader, Count Philip of Flanders. But when Philip refused and marched north with his army, the leper king was left to deal with Saladin on his own. But after the 16-year-old king marched out and defeated the Sultan's forces at the Battle of Montcassard, all attention turned to who would win the hand of his beautiful sister and inherit the kingdom, leading to bitter infighting among the crusaders. And with Saladin similarly seeking to consolidate his control over Muslim Syria, the two great enemies agreed to a 2-year truce. So the Sultan secretly sent letters to the Abbasid Caliph promising to unite all Islam and drive the crusaders from the Holy Land for good. Yet after the truce was broken early by a raid from the king's vassal Reynal in 1182, the king ordered him to return all his prisoners but refused. And so Saladin marched on the kingdom of Jerusalem with a fresh army, while at the same time in Constantinople, the pro-crusader Byzantine emperor was overthrown, and all the city's Latin inhabitants were slain. Yet now all on his own, outnumbered and so sick he had to be carried into battle, the leper king marched out and defeated the great Saladin's forces once again. But only 1 year later he became unable to blink and grew blind. And now in his deathbed had no choice but to appoint his sister's husband Guy as his regent. And although Guy was able to hold off another invasion by Saladin, he missed a crucial moment to destroy the enemy army completely, and the Sultan was once again allowed to escape. Now filled with fury, the king made a miraculous partial recovery and took command once again. And when Saladin descended upon the castle of Correct, the leper king led out his troops while being carried in a litter and saved his kingdom one last time. But shortly after turning 24, the great king passed away, and with his sister's husband Guy now back on the throne, Saladin marched 40,000 men against 20,000 crusaders at the Battle of Hattin and utterly annihilated their army, pillaging the kingdom and capturing the holy capital of Jerusalem. And despite the best efforts of Richard the Lionheart and later crusaders, the kingdom of Jerusalem would never again regain its former glory. When you're the only man who could have saved the crusader states from the sword of Saladin, they don't just call you the leper king, they call you King Baldwin IV.
Thanks to a deathbed confession, a nearly 24-year-old cold case was closed this week when the bodies of a missing girl and her mother were found. 10-year-old Natasha Alex Carter and her mother Susan disappeared from their home in Beckley, West Virginia in August 2000. But at first, police initially reported that Alex may have been abducted by her mother. In a press release from December 2021 about the case, the FBI Pittsburgh said, quote, "At the time of their disappearance, Susan Carter and Alex's father were having a custody dispute, and Alex moved in with her mother and mother's new husband," which it's not confirmed that it was actually her mother's new husband, but they moved in, and then not long after that, Susan and Alex disappeared. But while it was initially suspected as a parental abduction by Susan, after the two remained missing, an investigation into other possibilities ensued, but unfortunately, the case went cold. In 2021, the FBI reopened the cold case and started looking into the man Susan and Alex were living with, Larry Webb. Searches of his home were done in 2022 and 2023, and they found a bullet embedded in the wall of what was Alex's bedroom. The bullet was tested for DNA, and it confirmed that blood on it belonged to Alex. In October 2023, Larry Webb was indicted on first-degree murder charges for Alex's death, despite Alex and Susan's bodies never being found. Due to his deteriorating health, though, Webb was not arrested until April 12, 2024, but since then he was being held without bond. On Monday, he had a medical episode, after which, in a, quote, come-to-Jesus moment on his deathbed, he confessed to authorities what he had done. Webb claimed that on August 8, 2000, he had gotten into an argument with Susan over money. He said he was missing some cash and believed that she had taken it and spent it. The argument escalated and he shot her, and then he ended up shooting Alex so there would be no witnesses. Webb then wrapped their bodies in bed linens and placed them in the basement that night. Over the next 2 nights, he dug a shallow grave in the woods on his property, eventually burying them in his clothes, and then walking free for the next 20 years. On April 22, 2024, Larry Webb died at Mount Olive Correctional Complex, and 6 hours later, Susan and Alex's remains were found at his property in Beckley. Unfortunately, now that Webb is dead, he cannot be charged in connection to their deaths. At least now they have been found and can be properly laid to rest. Alex's father, Rick Lafferty, said after the discovery, quote, "It's kind of a sad day, but also a happy day because I can bring my baby home. Rest in peace, Alex and Susan."
Rest in peace. Insane, man. It always takes somebody up to the end to finally confess what they did. Crazy case. Seekers, if you guys stay with me to the end of the video, you're true seekers seeking the truth. I really appreciate the support, man. Like I said, guys, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe, follow me on my social medias down below. Also, man, like I said, comment down the video, even if you guys just to say hi, it helps in the algorithm. So greatly appreciate the support. You guys can catch you in the next one, man. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.
Who were caught cheating, part 2. In 1994, on the day before the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, title holder Nancy Kerrigan was filmed finishing a practice skate, but just seconds later she was screaming in pain on the ground after a man with a police baton attacked her. The attack severely bruised her knee, which made her unable to compete. Her longtime rival Tonya Harding went on to take first place and was selected alongside her for that year's Winter Olympic skating team. However, police soon discovered that the attack on Kerrigan had been ordered by a bounty hunter. In a shocking twist of events, Tonya Harding's ex-husband Jeff Gillooly and her once bodyguard Sean Eckhart were labeled as the culprits. They'd hired the bounty hunter to break Kerrigan's leg, removing Harding's competition in the upcoming events. Although she claimed she had no part in the conspiracy, Harding later admitted that she knew her ex-husband had been involved, but she'd failed to report it. But karma had the last laugh. At the games, a malfunction with her skates saw Tonya placed down in 8th, while Kerrigan managed a silver in 2nd.
That goes to show you, bro. That's proof of karma right there, man. She knew what was gonna happen, man. To take out the competition, she ain't saying nothing about it, and she still got 8th place. She didn't even get top 1 or 2, man, for the gold or silver medal. That's karma, seekers, right there, in 4K.
Here are some things that 99% of humans can't do. Are you part of the 1%? The ability to raise eyebrows is an evolutionary trait that all of us can do. While pretty much everybody can raise their eyebrows, only 1% of the world can raise one eyebrow at once. Did you know that 99% of the world can't lick their elbow? So you probably can't do this, and I bet you're probably doing it right now. However, for some people, this task is actually really easy, which is due to being born with really flexible bodies or practicing a lot of gymnastics. Only 2% of people can wiggle their ears. Unlike other face muscles, ear muscles are operated by a completely different part of your brain. If you try to use your face muscles to move your ears, it's never gonna work. So you're gonna have to raise your eyebrows and smile widely to lift your ears. And if you're lucky, you might be one of the few people that can move them.
I can't. Seekers, can you guys do any of those things? I think I can do the elbow joint. I think actually I can. But I can't do the ear joint. That's completely different. Or that one eyebrow, what the Rock be doing. I cannot do that. Tell me down below if you can do that, man. I'm actually curious if any of you guys can do that.
These people have died. Part 5. In 2000, Burger King managers Lisa Goetz and Lori Thomas staged a fake robbery of the restaurant where Lori took the money and Lisa acted as the victim, bound with duct tape and trapped in the walk-in cooler. Unfortunately, police didn't arrive until the next morning where they found Lisa, who died of hypothermia. According to investigators, Lisa could have easily freed herself from her bindings and escaped the unlocked refrigerator as she had no signs of forced restraint and the duct tape was loose. In 1998, during a heated marital dispute, a 25-year-old man picked up his 20-year-old wife and threw her off their 8th floor apartment balcony. Somehow the woman became entangled in the power lines below, and in what may have been an effort to save her or maybe finish her off, the man leapt from the balcony aiming for the wires. He missed the power lines completely and plunged to his death, and the woman managed to swing over to a nearby balcony and was saved.
That was an insane case, especially the last one. She tried to aim for the power lines to completely miss, but she made it?
This man was frozen in ice for 3 days, and you won't believe what happened to him. His name is David Blaine, and he went inside a block of ice for 3 days with no food and only one tube supplying him with air and water. At the 61-hour mark, he was beginning to lose consciousness, but he couldn't go to sleep because if he leaned on the ice, he would have gotten severe frostbite. Unfortunately, this led him to have extreme hallucinations. Near the end of the stunt, he called his girlfriend over, but she was immediately pulled away. This made him think that he was dead and that she couldn't see him. After 63 hours, they decided to cut him out, but they said he was so delusional he tried to grab the chainsaw. He finally made it out, but he was so physically and emotionally tired that he couldn't walk or talk. David was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, and after 1 month of therapy, he finally made a full recovery.
If you're watching horror movies and feel like something's watching you, this could be why. A family from Ecuador enjoyed watching horror movies together in their living room. But one night, during their late horror night session, they began to feel a strange presence with them in the living room. Scared, thinking they might have attracted an evil entity into
into their home. They place a camera in their living room, and this is what they capture.
Ahí yo fue que ya comencé a sentirme mal. ¿Por qué? Porque mira, a ver, eso yo sí lo vi claramente, así, de reojo. Mira, ¿sí viste? Eso sí.
One of the family members is startled as a dark figure can be seen moving behind him. After this, objects began to fly across the room.
La puerta ahí como la tenía trancada. ¿No? Sí, ¿qué pasa?
They just get out of there. The family will later call in a priest to bless the house, but the hauntings persist.
This is the stuff of nightmares that's like straight out of the
Is that legit, Seekers?
It has a lot to do with the dark web. Sometime around 2004, when people were just starting to explore what would later be known as the dark web, they would talk about a woman that would show up on your screen, except it wasn't a woman. It was a distorted mask of a woman's face. And what this person would do is that they would recite your full name and your address, and then say, "I'm coming for you." And then the whole screen would go dark.
This is what they mean when they say only 5% of the ocean has been explored. What kind of fish is this?
Did that fish just eat a rock? I mean, like I said, it's true. We only explore like 5% of the ocean, so there could be some species down there that we haven't even seen before. Have you seen that fish before, man? I sure haven't. The more you know. That's scary.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. Part 16. Kangaroos are absolutely terrifying, and if you mess with one, it will likely lure you into the water and attempt to drown you. There's an abandoned Disney park that you aren't allowed to go to, and it was shut down in 1999 because it was infested with free-roaming alligators. The animals were being abused, and an 11-year-old boy died from a flesh-eating bacteria found in the park's waters. In the movie The Wizard of Oz, the lion's costume was made out of a real skinned lion. This is the John Lawson house. No one knows who lives there, but every single day, there are several female mannequins sitting on the front porch wearing a variety of clothing. Their positions and outfits change daily, and many believe this is meant to convey some sort of message. And in 1871, a train crash took place just 200 feet away from the home, killing 22 people. And these mannequins are always pointing toward the crash.
Why? Is that a hyena or something?
Yeah, the hyena's a girl. So many may know, female hyenas have a fake meat hose that looks almost identical to the real thing. And for those that don't, nah, actually, that's the lead. They have a pseudo-phallus that they give birth from, and yes, it's as traumatizing as you think, and yes, the very process of birth can end up doing the exact opposite for everyone involved. But low-key, having a built-in flesh strap might explain why hyenas are exactly the way they are. So for most animals, life pretty much comes down to the 3 F's: food, fights, and... So a lot of times when male animals run a fade, it's for the goal of female validation. But hyenas having a female 5th leg means they have a natural crotch block. It's basically anti-mating hardware that means the no-pants dance can only happen if she allows it. So unlike things like lions or bears, there's really no reason for male hyenas to want smoke with each other when getting it in is already RNG. Pun intended. And it's believed having coitus completely out of their control is why male hyenas are way less aggressive and even have less testosterone than the females. Meanwhile, the females are more on-go than a green light. And why hyena sisters are way more likely to put each other on a t-shirt. And with them being pack animals with a whole social ladder, the Walking Comedy Club had to become more aggressive just to give their cubs a chance at life. Matter of fact, that's probably why they have more testosterone. So yeah, moral of this video. Lion King did hyenas every type of dirty, but they got it right when they had Shanti giving orders. And now you know why.
This is why you should be scared of that one person you're talking to online that you're about to meet in real life. Blanca Arellano, a 51-year-old Mexican woman, was looking for love. She met a Peruvian man named Juan Villafuerte on an online gaming app. And on the last day of October, she traveled 3,000 miles to Lima, Peru to meet him. She thought that he could be the one. On November 7th, while in the beach city of Huacho, where Villafuerte lived, Blanca spoke to her niece on the phone and told her that the relationship was going well and that she was in love. Then, she went silent. Her niece suspected something was wrong after not being able to get into contact with her. She called for help on Twitter and reached out to Juan Villafuerte, who said that Blanca got bored of him and left to find a plane ticket back to Mexico, as he could not provide the life she wanted. But the truth was much, much darker. On November 10th, Peruvian authorities found a severed finger on the beach of Huacho. Then in the following days, they found a faceless head, and then an arm, and then a torso with no organs inside of it. They eventually identified Blanca Arellano via her family by the ring on her finger. Juan Villafuerte was arrested on charges of human organs trafficking. Authorities found traces of blood all over his apartment, and he reportedly posted TikTok videos of human organs days after Blanca's disappearance. Creepy last words people said right before dying. A nursing assistant said that she was in a long-term patient's room changing the sheets. The patient would periodically look behind her. She asked the patient what was wrong, and the patient looked in her eyes and asked, "He doesn't scare you?" The nurse was confused, and she asked her who she was referring to, and the patient said, "The big man in the top hat. He's standing right behind you." She said that she doesn't think that she has ever finished changing a bed sheet and repositioning a patient as fast as she did that night. She refused to go into that room by herself for the rest of her shift. Linda Johnson, a former nurse, said that she had a gentleman in his late 90s who was dying. He started screaming blood-curdling screams, so they raced to his room. He was screaming that the room was on fire and that there was a man with large horns peering out of the flames. He kept pointing to one wall, saying that it was on fire. The nurses turned on the lights and tried to calm and console him, but to no avail. Instead of being consoled, Linda said that he told her that she was on fire and that he could see her being consumed by flames. Linda said that it was the creepiest thing that has ever happened to her. The doctor was notified, but nothing relieved the patient's terrifying hallucinations. He died soon after. Cynthia said that several years ago, her 20-year-old daughter had brain surgery. She got an infection of the spinal fluid. She was there in grave condition for a month. Cynthia never left her daughter's side. One night, the worst night at this point, she asked who the man in black was that was standing by the bathroom, and why Cynthia's deceased brother, the girl's uncle, was standing next to her at the side of the bed. Cynthia immediately got the chills. She told her daughter, "They're not here." Then she told her brother and the man in the black, whom she couldn't see, "You both have to go now. She's not ready to go, and I'm not ready to let her go." After that night, her daughter started to get better and better each day. Today, her daughter is doing well.
September 25th, 1981, something very strange took place up in the Smoky Mountains. This is a picture of Pauline Melton, and it would end up being one of the last known photos of her. Because while Pauline was up there, she was with two hiking companions. They described that she, all of a sudden, without explanation, just started to rapidly speed up. They even described that they called out to her. They were asking, "Pauline, where are you going? Pauline." She never answered. She never looked back until she crossed over a hill. Since that exact moment, Pauline was never seen again. And to this day, they still have no idea where she went and why she did it.
Isn't that crazy, Seekers, man? You could go in the woods and just drop off the face of the earth. Man, that's how I'm going, man. You gotta go with a big group, bro. I don't want nothing to happen.
Donald Trump was shot this afternoon at a political rally in Pennsylvania. As you can see right here, this was moments after the shots were fired. Now, we don't have all the information right now, but obviously he is still alive. And the footage is absolutely disturbing. In the clip, you can hear multiple gunshots ring out. The audience starts screaming. Trump drops to the ground. He is covered quickly by the Secret Service agents. In the broadcast footage, he grasps his ear, so he may have been grazed by a bullet up there. Like I said, we don't have all the information. This is a developing story, but this isn't the first time that someone has tried to assassinate a president or former president. In 1912, an assassin attempted to end the life of Teddy Roosevelt as he was on the campaign trail. This man was former salon keeper John Schrank, and he would later claim that William McKinley's ghost had visited him in a dream and told him to avenge him for his assassination. Teddy Roosevelt, after being shot, continued with his speech, even as he profusely bled through the front of his shirt. And while he didn't end up getting elected that year, doctors at the time said that it was safer for him to keep the bullet inside his body than attempt to remove it. So for the rest of his life, he carried on with a bullet lodged in his chest. Then in 1981, someone attempted to assassinate Ronald Reagan. This photo was actually taken just moments before the shots were fired. 3 people were injured in this attack, but nobody died. And obviously, as you guys probably already know, Ronald Reagan survived. He was in critical condition when he was rushed to the hospital, but nobody ended up passing away from this assassination attempt. The guy who did it was named John Hinckley Jr., And weirdly enough, he had been obsessed with actress Jodie Foster after watching the film Taxi Driver, and he claimed that he had carried out the assassination attempt in an attempt to impress her. And interestingly enough, he just signed a record deal last year and will be releasing a folk album soon.
Really?
What's going on with Aubrey Wyatt?
The hell?
Aubrey was a 13-year-old girl who went to Ocean Springs Middle School in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. In September of 2023, Aubrey took her own life after being bullied by a group of 4 girls. Even after Aubrey's death, those bullies continued to harass her and bully her. Aubrey's mom, Heather, ran to social media as an outlet to talk about Aubrey and just to try to cope with everything that went on. On her account, she would talk about bullying and ultimately what it could lead up to. Although Heather did not name or threaten those 4 girls, their names and personal information ended up being shared by others. Heather was the subject of 2 separate lawsuits brought by the parents of those girls. The Jackson County judge ordered Heather to take down all of her social media accounts so she could no longer talk about Aubrey's case, and they did this so that they could protect the minors in this case. Shortly after that, Heather started a GoFundMe page to raise money to help with legal costs to be allowed to keep fighting online on Aubrey's behalf. I truly hope that Aubrey gets some kind of justice in the end.
The first person to live forever is already alive, at least according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, who explains it with irrefutable logic. It starts with someone that was born in like the past year or so. Our test subject, call him Johnny Boy. The reason Johnny, or any of us, age is because our cells are constantly dividing, making fresh copies of our DNA in each new cell. Our DNA is packed into chromosomes, and since DNA duplication isn't perfect, the tips of these chromosomes are slightly trimmed on every replication. Sort of like making a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. The quality slightly degrades each time. To protect against this, our chromosomes have something called telomeres on their tips, which essentially contain junk DNA data that we can afford to lose. But even these telomeres are finite. They get shorter and shorter on every duplication until at some point they're fully gone. Then the cell stops dividing, gradually loses its function and withers away. The more this happens in our cells, the more we age, and our bodies experience age-related characteristics. Scientists like David Sinclair are currently getting really close to reversing this process in human cells. He's developed what he refers to a chemical cocktail that can reprogram the way our cells are read to sort of fill in the blanks from these imperfections in our DNA replication. The science behind it is quite extensive, and he ran tests on lab mice that were incredibly successful. Having mice born at the same time, with one looking visibly older than the other, says that human trials are planned to start within the decade, and it's just a matter of time before we start seeing success in that. So where does this live forever come from? Obviously, the first version of this cocktail won't be perfect. It may extend human life to, let's say, 150 years. Now remember our test subject, Johnny Boy? In 20 years, he'll be 20, at which time we're almost guaranteed to be undergoing human trials at the very least, if not already publicly available. This life potion is given to Johnny so that he can live until 150. The claim states that by the time Johnny is 40, we're almost guaranteed to make enough advancement to double the anti-aging cocktail so that now he can live till 300. 20 years later, when he's 60, the potion will be approved so that he can live till 500 years old. By the time he's 80, he can live till 1,000. These numbers are all arbitrary, but the general principle still holds up. Even if we start seeing diminishing returns in the improvements of this concoction, Johnny has already hacked his way into living forever. He can already live till 1,000 at this point, so even if it takes 100 more years to improving the medicine to living till, say, 2,000 years old, he'll live until then and take it, constantly outliving the improvement curve of anti-aging until they've cracked the code to the million-year potion, at which point Johnny Boy is essentially immortal. Which means one of 2 things absolutely must happen in our future. 1, we colonize other planets, or 2, we stop having babies. If people are living forever and no longer dying, our population will continue to grow and just grow and grow. At which point we either need more space to put people, like other planets, or we gotta stop making people. So unless we want to sterilize the entire human race, living forever probably isn't a good idea until we figure this multi-planetary business out.
Things that show...
What do you guys think about that theory, Seekers? The age gap, but it just kept going and going and going, man. They're working on stuff, man, to make us not age no more. We live forever, trying to make us immortal. What do you guys think about that?
Show off the power of time. Part 7. Disney World has had about 58 million visitors per year since it opened in 1971. one. And during those visits, guests would often have to wait in lines that were organized by rope walkways. And if you look closely at the rope clips, you can see that they've started to wear down. Some have even created a new groove. And no, I'm not talking about Cusco. Next, watching waves at the shoreline might seem like a calming activity, but not if you're a resident of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Over time, the waves wore the shoreline and even took a huge chunk out of it. Now, this would usually take several years for the effects to be seen. But in the case of Green Bay, this all happened within the span of an hour.
Wow, what the hell? The power of water.
And lastly, we're told that tattoos are permanent, but this may not be the case. Because this guy got a tattoo of a flower on the palm of his hand. And in just 2.5 months, the tattoo mostly vanished. This is mainly because our palms experience a lot of friction from how often we rub our hands. So if you want a tattoo, you might want to avoid your palm.
Bro,
I got the
most wholesome animal on earth. Brother, if you wanted a manatee video, you could have just asked. Did you know when alligators and manatees cross paths underwater, the alligators seem to let them pass? A prehistoric sledgehammer and they give manatees the right of way. That's how you know you got motion in the ocean. There's never been a record of a manatee attacking a human, and it might be because it's literally physically impossible. One is because their teeth are way in their mouths, and their mold is designed for grinding grass, not biting. You know, if you ever get bit by a manatee, that means you were in his throat, and if you were, that means this law was for you. Some things don't need exploring Columbus. Also, some scientists think that because adult manatees have no predators, and because they don't have to fight each other over who eats what grass, there's a lot of talk that the sea squishy is mentally incapable of feeling aggression. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I will say 3 things. 1, they don't just eat grass, they'll go pescatarian if the opportunity presents itself. 2, as fast as you think manatees are, they're faster. It might not be with malicious intent, but 1,200 pounds of anything moving like that is definitely cause to pause. And 3, last year a popular manatee named Q, past tense, after essentially explicit interaction with a bigger male named Buffett, tore him open like a reverse butt birth. The catch: Buffett was his brother. Yeah, that's pretty bad, but did you know manatees are also closely related to my favorite animal? They even got the same nail tech. So yeah, I'm a little biased, so I'm gonna let it slide. Especially since I'm pretty sure it wasn't aggression, but just a dangerous lack of awareness. But yeah, God bless this water blimp, and R.I.P. Hugh.
R.I.P. Hugh, bro. I didn't know manatees were related to like elephants. I saw that. We learn new things every day, Seekers,
Don't
man.
freak out, but we are right now entering the beginning of the end of the universe. 95% of all the stars that will ever form have already formed. And it gets even crazier than that. There is a sphere around us called the Hubble sphere. Beyond this point, everything is moving away from us faster than the speed of light due to the expansion of space itself. And how many of the galaxies do you think are outside of this sphere? 94% of all the galaxies we can see are beyond this boundary today. Meaning, no matter how hard we try, if there are aliens living in these galaxies, we will never be able to meet them. 60,000 stars pass beyond this horizon every single second. That's nearly 2 million solar systems we can no longer visit since the start of this video. This will continue until we are all alone. The universe as we know it, with all the beautiful galaxies and nebulae, will slowly fade away into darkness, and the astronomers of the future will point their telescopes everywhere, finding the same thing: darkness and silence for the rest of eternity.
Here are horrible things done by very influential people. Everyone knows Steve Jobs for founding Apple, but what most people don't know is the dark side of his personal life. He had an on and off relationship with a woman named Kristen Brennan, and this led to a messy pregnancy and a years-long paternity battle. Steve Jobs refused to help Brennan and their child financially, and she had to go on welfare. Now, eventually, he did help his daughter, but only because Brennan came forward about his behavior in an interview with Time magazine in 1982. Before becoming a popular kids book author, Theodore Seuss Geisel, aka Dr. Seuss, served in the animation department of the United States Army during World War II. He wrote training and propaganda films, and designed posters to get people signed up to join the army. But a lot of his work at the time made the Japanese look really horrible, and this carried on into his earlier books. And Mother Teresa helped provide healthcare to the sick and the poor, but her actions behind the scenes were questionable, to say the least. It's been reported that her care involved these people allegedly going through a forced conversion to Catholicism, which involved children being baptized without their parents' consent. She also allegedly hid the actions of priests who were behaving inappropriately around children, and used charity funds for her own medical care. Yeah, this is not what Jesus would do.
This teacher was caught doing it with an 8th grade student, and apparently it was almost daily. The kid was 13 years old, and now she will serve 10 years in prison. This happened in Texas. The teacher behind me, her name is Alexandria Vera. She's 25 years old, and this 13-year-old got her pregnant. She stated the relationship happened in the Instagram DMs, and his family apparently approved of this relationship. The judge and the school district said that they want their teachers to teach students, not put their hands all over their students. She was originally going to get 30 years in prison, but the judge said, I don't think she's that bad, and gave her 10 years. Apparently this relationship blossomed in 2015 around summertime. The boy kept advancing, she kept denying, but eventually she gave in apparently. Prosecutors said, based on evidence, they did it daily for 9 months straight. And apparently during the entire ordeal, to get away with this, she told her neighbors that the boy was her brother. And now it gets even weirder. She even moved his father in with her so she could pretend she was dating the father when in reality she was the kid. This was kind of a mask. She was also paying for the family's groceries and phone bill. This kid literally had a sugar mama. Now Alexandria Vera has a 6-year-old daughter that even called the 13-year-old kid her dad. What an interesting case. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're from Houston, Texas, did you hear about this case around you guys? As always, these videos are for informational purposes only. Once again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I definitely feel like she should have served life for this. She knew exactly what she was doing, but the court system was pretty lenient on her.
I may get caught right away. Basically, if I get caught, I'm just going to shoot myself. So, I could basically be dead in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I don't know. There's a chance at this point.
The video you just saw was made by murderer Peter Keller, who in 2012 murdered his wife and daughter before taking his own life. Now, in the lead up to murdering his family, Peter actually made a series of disturbing vlogs. He took a handy cam out with him into the woods and showed him preparing for something. He actually was creating an underground bunker stocked with all sorts of supplies like candy and beans. And during these videos, he talks to the camera very candidly, and it's some really disturbing stuff. The videos offer a glimpse into the mind of a killer who's on edge. He didn't know at the time whether or not he could actually follow through with murdering his wife and daughter, but unfortunately, he did. On April 22nd, 2012, after constructing the bunker in the woods unbeknownst to his family, Peter shot both his wife Lynette and his daughter Kayleen in the face with a silenced weapon before he set his house on fire. He then fled to the underground bunker and was able to evade capture by the police for a whopping 6 days. But once authorities figured out where Peter was, they surrounded the bunker with a SWAT team, and that's when he fired the fatal shot into his own head, taking his own life. In his video recordings, Peter talks about how it'll be exciting to live out in the bunker, and he discusses his fantasy of robbing banks and pharmacies and living on the run. But his run didn't last that long, and he left behind so many questions and a trail of blood and sadness. If you want to hear more stories like this, listen to the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife Courtney. It's available now on all streaming platforms.
It's a tragic case, man. Truly tragic. You guys, if you guys made it with me to the end of the video, you're a true seeker seeking the truth. I really appreciate the support, man. Like I said, guys, make sure you guys, man, follow me on all my social medias, man. Links in the description down below, guys. Also, man, hit that post notification bell. Also, man, hit that like button, man. That's very important, man. It's gonna push us in the algorithm. We're gonna take off one day, man. But we just going step by step by now, and I really appreciate the support I have for right now. You guys gonna catch you in the next one, man. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.